Hey Power Appers, this is Brian Knight from Pragmatic Works, and in today's video, we're going to focus on virtual connectors and how are they going to change the way you code in Power Apps and also in Dataverse. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. When you're coding a system in Dataverse, oftentimes we have to replicate our data. So when we're building out that Power App, and I want to build a system that points to students, for example, I have to bring all the students from my student information system, which might be in SQL Server, might be in Oracle, whatever, bring it over to Dataverse and duplicate all that data and build data flows to constantly refeed that data. Well, there's a better alternative now, which is going to change the way you code in Dataverse. No longer do you have to replicate all that data. Instead, we can use virtual connectors. Virtual connectors in Dataverse are going to allow you to link to that student information system or link to that patient record and see a live reference table that can be updated, that can be deleted and inserted into, right side by side with your Dataverse tables. So what does that mean then? So let's imagine, for example, you want to extend your student information system and you want to log which student is making a certain request to join a certain program. Well, your student information system does not have that other piece. So you want to build a Power App on Dataverse to do that. Well, one of the things you can do is just point to that table that has a listing of all your students. And now, rather than have to duplicate all those students, they're right there for you. And you can create, read, update, and delete based on whatever permissions that you have. So let's take a look at what this is going to mean. There are really a number of steps we have to do. So let's kind of review those real quick. The first step is we have to install the connector that you're seeing right here. You're going to find a link to this connector inside of the description of this video, along other links that you may care about as well. So step one, install the connector. All right, after we have that connector installed, we need to create a connection to whatever data source that we want to communicate with. Whether it be a SharePoint list or a SQL Server table, you want to create a good old-fashioned Power Apps connection to those data sources. That's step two. Step three, we're going to create a reference to that connection that you just created. And step four, we're now going to use that connection for good. We're going to go ahead and build out an application on top of that. All right, and create the Dataverse tables at that point as well. So let's walk through those steps now. First step, we want to go ahead and create the virtual connector solution. So when I hit Get Now, it'll ask me a few questions. There we go. I'll click that. And once I specify what kind of questions, it's going to ask me what environment do I want to install this in. This is going to install the solution required for this. So when I click on this, it'll say, hey, do you agree? And then I'll hit Create. This is going to create the solution. I'm going to hit cancel because I've already done it. So what this does is if I go back to resources and Dynamics 365 apps, we'll see a list of all the apps that you've already installed. You can also go to environments here, pick my environment that I want to go to. The reason why I'm showing this to you is occasionally you're going to have to update this environment. So going over to my Dataverse, there it is, and then I'll select Dynamics 365 apps. And when I select that, you're going to see a listing of all the apps I've installed, including this virtual connector right here. That's how you can see, and it might say need updates or whatever, update button right here, and where you can select the ellipsis and update the app. So every so often you want to go back here and just make sure it's been updated. Now what this installs is if I go over to my solution, it's going to install under solutions, these two solutions that you're seeing right here. So at make.powerapps.com, you'll go to solutions and you'll see the two solutions that just got installed. So now that I've got that, my next step is to create the connector. So I'm going to go back to my Power Apps. I think I've got one right here. And I went ahead and already created under Data and Connections a link to my SQL Server. If you're curious, if you want to play along with me, I put the credentials to my SQL Server right along with this. So you can go ahead and play with me and create a link to this connection that you're seeing right here. You're going to find those directions inside of the description of this video, okay? So you'll hit New Connection and pick your SQL Server connection, and you'll select SQL Server Authentication and just put the credentials that you see. Make sure you scroll down, and there's no gateway. Okay, so this video is not about that, so we'll keep on going. Next, I'm going to go over to my solution, and I've got a student here, this solution here called Student Experience. Well, let's go with this one right here. And I've got a number of apps inside of here and all those kind of goodies. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new reference to that connection. So let me zoom in here. I'm going to take my face off here so you can see in a moment what this looks like. So what I'm looking for here, let me zoom in a little closer here, is going to be connection reference. As I go down, there it is, preview, connection reference. All right, once I've done that, I'm going to give it a name. So I'll just call this student connection reference, something like that. Call it whatever you want. And I'll call it virtual. So it's not a virtual student, but a virtual connector here. That's my name for it. Put whatever description you want here. And then under connectors, you're going to choose SQL Server. So I'm looking for SQL Server here. There it is. And once I choose SQL Server, you'll see the only SQL Server connection I happen to have. So that you can also create the new connection here if you wish as well. So I'm going to create that reference. So we're going to see this name here called Virtual Student Connection Ref. And that's going to point to that demo connection that you see right there. Once I do that, I'll hit create. This will take a few seconds to do its thing. So step 1, 2, and 3 are now done. Now our next step is we have to go over to the advanced properties of our application, and we are going to go ahead and create a reference to that. Okay, so it's a little bit trickier now, but what we can do is we want to go over to the gearbox here and go to advanced settings. Okay, the gearbox in the top right. Now this opens up all the kind of dynamic-y kind of stuff you have in the background. Now this is not been ported over to the modern interface yet, so this is still in part of the old interface, like the link table interface. So to do this, we'll go up to the top here, we'll hit settings, okay, and what we're looking for here is data as administration right here. So find administration and click on that drop-down box right here. Once you've done that, you're now ready to go into virtual entity data sources. Go ahead and select it. We'll create a new data source, and there's one piece that I forgot here, which is really critical. Before we do this, there's one piece we really need to do. I need to make sure that connection we created can be used by the organization, by the app. So I need to go over here and specify who in this environment can access that application. So I'm not going to create this yet. So let me go ahead and just close this down for a quick second, because we will want to come back here in a second. But if I go to my connection, this one right here, I'm going to make sure I share this with the org where they can use the connection. Okay, that's going to be important for later. Okay, you'll see this in the instructions for this right here, but if you don't do this, you'll get an error later that might cause a problem. All right, so we've now done that. One of the big gotchas I always forget to do, so that's why I had to come back here so you didn't have to see that error message that you would see later. All right, now let's go back to that advanced settings. All right, hit the drop-down box here, then go to administration, then virtual entities. Next, we'll hit a new virtual entity, and you'll see when I do that, that we have a new option, maybe not new to you, but an option here in the drop-down box. As with some things in Dynamics, it takes a little while for it to come back as it kind of starts the screen here. So we'll see how we do here. All right, so let's go ahead and hit picture in pitch. There we go. And now we have this new connector here called Virtual Connector Data Provider. I'm going to select that and hit OK. It's then going to give me a screen that looks like this, where I go into it, and we'll call this just, how would we call this, student system virtual connector, or something like that. What reference do you want to use? The reference is the one we just created. It's the, oh, okay, so this is a little bit interesting here. So we need a connection reference and a few more things here. So for the connection reference, this is going to be that, there we go, that a reference that we already have, virtual student connection reference right there. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Okay, the Power App environment. I'm going to get rid of my face here again so you can kind of see how we find all this information. The Power App environment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go out and back and forth to this screen so you can kind of see where I'm going to find all this. Now, typically speaking, you're not going to have just one environment. You're going to have multiple environments. So I'm going to leave this open, go to different screen here. I'm looking for, I'm going to make sure I am in my right environment. And then right here, I'll take this URL right there. See, that's environments /. Make sure it's the one that ends with environments /. So take that GUID right here, inside those /. Take that GUID and then paste it inside the virtual connector. Okay, so whatever environment you have. If you have something like a default environment, yours might say the word default in front, so capture that as well. All right, now that we've got that, our next step is we want to get the tenant ID, the client ID, and the client secret. So we're going to create some new stuff here, and this is going to be a little confusing to some of you guys at first when we do this. So I'm going to open up my Active Directory inside of Azure, excuse me. So I went to portal.azure.com. Once I'm there, I clicked on Active Directory, which takes me here. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new app registration. This gives the app, the connection reference, rights to that connection. Allows it to be able to kind of talk back and forth here. So we're basically creating a security policy here where those two systems can talk to each other. So I'm going to create an app registration, okay? And we'll call this just, student information system. I'll call it YouTube just for short, so I know what it's going to be. I can kill it later. I'll leave this as is, and make sure you leave this alone. It's not required. And then we'll go ahead and hit save. Once we do that, our next step is we have to create the certificate, the rights. How long can they actually use this application? So to do that, first of all, there's our client ID right there. So there's our next one we're going to see here in a moment. But let's go over to where to go. Let me get rid of my face so you can see all this. All right, so we're going to go to certificates and secrets. And I'm going to create a new secret here. We'll call this just whatever. How soon is this going to expire? What do you want? How often do you want to renew this, in other words? And then hit add. Okay, now make sure you don't use my IDs. My IDs are going to be deleted as soon as I'm done with this video, so obviously don't use these. Make sure you're doing this in your environment, of course. All right, so down here, let me get rid of my face again so you can see the whole thing. Down here, we have the IDs that we care about. So first of all, the value here, let me copy that to my clipboard. That value right here is the one that I'm going to need for my next step. So let me copy that out, go to my values. That's the client secret right there. I'm going to paste that in. Now I need the client ID and the tenant ID. So let me go back to that portal again, please. And back over here, we'll go to Overview. Now make sure before you leave the screen that you captured that value. The minute you save all this and leave the screen, at some point, it's not going to let you see that value again. So back in Overview, now we have the client ID right here. I'm going to copy that client ID, the application ID that you're seeing right there. Let me go ahead and snag that. I'm going to paste that in to the client ID you're seeing here. Lastly, I just need the tenant ID now, right? So let me go over to my tenant, and if I go up a level, we should be able to see our tenant. There's our tenant ID right there, and I'll paste that in. Not especially obvious, I recognize that, but when I save and close this, watch what's going to happen. Okay, so it's created it, but it's not really doing anything yet as far as we know. When I hit save, what's happening is if I go this little down arrow again and go over to jobs, system jobs, right there, we're going to see a job that gets created right here. See, it's in progress. So every so often, I can refresh this and we can see along the way, what is it doing? So what is it's querying the metadata out of my database, creating a catalog of all the items in that database. It's creating all the necessary plumbing to use those tables. And as you can see, as I do this refresh over and over again, we're seeing it's still in progress. It's spun up a few other jobs here. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes sometimes to do this, so be patient. But when you see everything says succeeded, you know you're ready to rock and roll with this. So we refresh a few more times here. Okay. And while this is doing its thing, let's talk about what else we want to do here. So our next step is to find out all the tables that are there. We'll click on the table and we'll basically create a virtual reference there. So that's our next piece. All right, looks like we are now all succeeded all the way down. And here's a little piece that's a little funny. We'll hit this little gear, this little advanced find right here in top right. Make sure it's this one, filter icon, and not this filter icon. Once I do that, I'm going to look for the word catalog here. Okay, give it a few seconds here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see all that. Get rid of my face again. And let's change this look for. Scroll down. What we're looking for is virtual, nope, not that one. Okay. This be a long, long name. I thought it was under a catalog here. Oh, I'm going to go to C's here. Okay. I'm looking for a student here. There it is. Entity catalog for virtual student connection reference. All right, sorry to take so long there. When I select this and then I hit results, it's going to come back with a list of tables that are available for me to create these references to. Okay. Any table there are some restrictions behind it, but not a whole lot. You can do a whole lot with this. So our next step is a few gotchas. I'm going to create some problems here so you can kind of see these gotchas. The first problem, it looks like I can go through and check all these and just hit this option up top. Do not do that. So instead, find the table you want. If you want to play with me, I'm going to use the student table here. And when I click on this student table, it's going to open this up. Okay. It's going to populate all the data in there for me. So multi-selecting at this time of this recording does not work yet. But now I'm creating a new entity here called dbo.students. And I will go ahead and say yes, refreshing is allowed. Okay. And my primary key, the primary name column I want to show is the last name of the student, for example. Okay. So we'll kind of leave it at that. That's the same primary name column you have inside of Power Apps and Dataverse today. It doesn't mean it's the primary key. It's just saying it's what you're going to see when you link to it, in other words. All right, it's a common language that we can use. So with that done, let's go ahead and save and close this. This may take it about 30 seconds or so to do, but what's happening now is after I finish this, I can then open up the table and do any kind of CRUD operations right side by side. Whether I have a portal application or a model-driven app or a Canvas app, I'm now able to kind of go through Dataverse to see this table. Okay, so it takes a few seconds. As you can see, it's a little bit sluggish here, but once it's done, we'll have all the data inside of this. Now, I don't have a whole lot of data inside of this right now. And it looks like, as you can see, it looks like it's not working, but it should have worked. So let me go, oh, there it goes. It finally dismissed it. So I'm going to go and close this. I'm going to go over to make.powerapps. I'm going to go to tables and let's see if it's here. All right. Oh, and hopefully, oh, there it is. Custom entity for dbo.student. And when I select this, keep in mind, this is in Dataverse now, but none of the data is in Dataverse. When I go to data, I don't have any records in that table right there, but it's actually sending that request over through to my SQL Server. Now, if I want to create a quick record or two inside of there, it's not a problem. Let me go over here, and I intentionally did not do this until just now. There we go. I'm going to open up Management Studio, and we're going to add a record or two into our system here. We'll see how this looks on our other system as well. How fast does this come over? So I'll put Mickey Mouse. All right, grade 34. And I've got Goofy, whatever, and he's in his 32nd grade also. And then lastly, I've got Devin Knight, and he's in 1. All right. So hopefully I'll see these 3 records in just a moment. I'm going to go back to my Power App, and I'm just going to go ahead and refresh data. It's going to go back out there, and let's see if we have a data. Look at that. All right, so we now have data. We now want to go ahead and integrate this into our application. Now I'm going to choose a model-driven app, but again, like I said before, this can work on any type of application you build. Portal, Canvas, whatever you want to do, no problems at all. It's going to live side by side. So additionally, when I go over to solutions, I want to go ahead and extend the stuff I've got. So let me go to my student experience one here, and I'm going to create a new table, and I'll call this like student request or something like this. Student request. Okay, the student request will have a, I don't know, request name, whatever. This is just a sample table here. And then I'll hit create. So this is the student request table inside of my solution that I created the virtual connector in. So now I'm going to go to add another column, and I'll call this, the student that has a request. I'm going to do a lookup column. But check this out. I'm going to look at column. I'm going to go scroll down, and I've got this gnarly looking table. If I can find it, there it is, custom entity for student. And I'll hit done. Okay, and I'll just add one more, just like a, request description or something like that, just for fun. Make that text area. All right, cool. And when I save this, there's a few things I want to do, right? I want to go ahead and build this app out real quickly here so we can see the love here that we're about to get. All right, keep on how difficult this was before, right? I had to go out and build a data flow to load this student information over daily or weekly or hourly or whatever. So now I'm going to go over to forms. I'm going to go to my main form here, and I'm going to modify my main form to go ahead and show the student information in as well. So I'm just going to go over my ABC on the left side, just like we had before. This is just good old-fashioned model-driven apps here. And I'm going to go and just show me the stuff that I can actually see, request description, and student. All right, good enough. And I'll save and publish that. Now let's go ahead and modify our application or build a new application to actually see all this data here. All right, so I'm publishing that app out there now. Now additionally, our form for the student table is not going to look very nice right now. So we're going to want to alter that in a moment as well. But I published this out now. Let me go back. Okay, and I'm also going to modify the view as well. What the heck, why not? I'll modify this view, and we're going to go ahead and point to those new columns as well. Boom, boom. All right, save and publish this. All right, so our child table is now ready. Now, what do we have to do to actually bring in the other table as well? So we're going to go ahead and build an app that uses the other table and go ahead and tie all this stuff together, hopefully. All right, so we have our student request table ready to go. Let's go back to our student experience solution, where again, so far all we've added, oh look at that, we've got our custom entity here in our solution. We've got, and we have this because we linked to it, by the way. We've got our virtual connector right down here. That's what we added. This was implicitly added up top. And we also have added the student request table. That was one that we added this one. We add this one in our first step, and this was automatically added up top. All right, so now I want to go ahead and do a few things. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and modify my view just a little bit on our special table we just created. So let's go ahead and find that special table, this custom entity for this guy here. If you don't see that, it's because you haven't put a reference out there to it. You can always add it by adding existing tables right here. Let's go into it though, and we're going to go ahead and create some views around that. So first of all, go into views. We'll see a list of all the views. And what we're looking for is something like active students, something like that. Or we can create our own view. I'm going to go ahead and just hijack this public view right here. So all custom entity. Okay, when I select that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and add in those new fields that we did. So I'm going to add in like the first and last name for the student and so on and so on. All right, so to do that, again, you've already seen this. I'm going to add first name and grade and the student ID. So I'm just adding all this stuff to this table right here. I'm going to save and publish that. Okay, so we have a view we can now use. And next, there we go. We're seeing our grades of our student IDs. We don't really need the student ID. I guess I'm going to remove that also, right? Now, we want to create a form where our users can interact with the data. You may not want that. You may not want them to actually interact with it. You may just want them to see it and reference to it because this is a reference-only table to you. That is completely your call. You give the permissions based on traditional Dataverse permissions. But if I go back here again, let's now go modify the form. So I'm going to go to Forms, and I want to mess with this main form right here. So I'll go ahead and select it. And I'm going to go over to the ABC again. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on these columns. Boom, boom, and boom. I'm going to leave student ID out of this because that one's auto-assigned by the SQL Server. Okay, so I'll leave the student ID out and just put these one columns in. I'll save and publish that. And we're now ready to actually build the application so you can see how all this stuff comes together. All right, last step here for us is the actual application. We can, of course, modify our existing app, but in my case, I'll just go ahead and create a new app and be nice and lazy. I'll create a new model-driven app. It's going to be the modern interface, which is so much better, and I'll hit create. I'll call this just YouTube. Hit create. And once we have that, we are ready to go ahead and add in our tables. So it's going to ask us, do you want to create a page? So I hit the add page right here, and I hit table-based views and forms, and we'll go ahead and search for our tables. I had student somewhere in there. There it is, custom for student. And I also had student request, these two tables right here. Now, you may be looking at that table and you're like, that is a god-awful name for a table, right? We're about to fix that, and that's no problem at all. So I'll hit add. Our users don't want to see this terrible name here, custom entity for our students. So what we want to do is when I select this table, on the left here, or on the over here, either way, custom entity. So pick however you want to get to it. You know, I like to do it this way actually in the middle. Then you can actually change the name of the title right here. So I'll just call this students. Just like that. So in the title, this reflects whatever you want the table to be called to the user. PowerApps sees this, but our users see this. So again, to get here, you just select the table, and then you change it to whatever you want. Oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. Student request. There we go. Oh, all right, come on, Brian. There we go. So I'll just call this title here is what you want to change. I'll call this just request. Okay, so I'll save, I'll publish, and then we'll play it, and we'll see how all this stuff relates to each other. Now, a few things to note while this is publishing. This is a preview feature. I have been using it quite a bit. It is pretty nice. You're going to have some levels of frustration as they're working on it, maybe sometimes as they're kind of making it better and better. You might get a little frustration level out there sometimes. But all in all, it's gone through some nice diligence now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit new here, and I'm going to add a new student. All right, we'll call this just Brian Knight this time. Well, let's go with, all right, Ronald McDonald. All right, he's on the 3rd grade, and when I hit save and close, let's see what happens. So first of all, we got a little ISV error here. This could come from a number of ways. This is going to be what SQL Server is returning. And I'm intentionally trying to give us some problems here so you can see this. So this is SQL Server's return this, and when I go back to students and I discard this, we're going to see when I refresh this data set that the record did not make it over there. And the mistake I made here in this case was I put last name a few times in that case, and that's what's giving me the problem right now. But if I fix that in the form, we would be able to send that record right through. We can also go to students here and check this out. I can select Devin, for example, and delete him. And when I delete him, there it goes. You'll notice that in my SQL Server table over here that we created earlier, that Devin is now gone from that. Additionally, if I select Mickey Mouse, we can change it to Minnie Mouse, and I actually going to get an error here, I'm almost certain, but if I hit save and close, I believe I'll get an error because that second one there. We're about to find out though. All right, what's happening right now is it's posting that back to the SQL Server table, and in a moment, I have it open right now, there we go. If I click over here, we'll now see it has Minnie Mouse in there. So that record trickles right back through to the system. Now again, the mistake I made, just to recap that mistake, is I have last name twice, and I think that's giving me some of the issues, the ISV issues that you're seeing right here. The next piece is, I want to create a request for a student. I'm going to go to new request, and now I'll call this just blah, 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 all right? And I'll put toilet broken, and dorm A, whatever. All right, and I go to students, and I can hit the little magnifying glass, and now I'm seeing a live view for my student information system in this example, where I can select Minnie, and when I hit save and close, there's a reference, a foreign key from Dataverse all the way over to Azure and into my SQL Server database. So awesome, right? So this prevents me from having to go through and duplicate all that data over again. Creates a very, very easy use to do it. So those are our steps to do this. Of course, my form, I do have to fix here to make that, but I want bludgeon you guys with my fixing of the form. But in this example, we showed you how to create a virtual connector, point to any data source you want. There are some limitations there, mind you. There's some documentation in the description of this video. And it's an amazing feature for not having to duplicate all that data. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me through email, b9@pragmaticworks. We also do this as part of hackathons, where we teach you how to build Power Apps with your own business problems. We also have a number of training classes that we have out there at pragmaticworks.com. If this is useful for you, please do subscribe to us. It helps us know that people are out there and actually care about what we're doing. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hope to see you later on Power Apps. Goodbye.